Welcome to the Great American Collectibles Show. It's brought to you by PSA and the National Sports Collectors Convention.
I am really excited to talk to our first guest. Ed Hearn played from 1986 to 1988 in the major leagues with the New York Mets and the Kansas City Royals. He had a .263 career average, which is great for me because I know I wouldn't have reached the Mendoza line.
Absolutely.
Dave, if I played in the majors. So, but the biggest thing, and we did a little pre-interview with Ed before the show. First of all, I love his voice. We got to get into that amazing voice that he has. But he is the only player in professional baseball history to get this. He won championships in 4 consecutive years: A ball, double A ball, triple A ball, and then in the major league level with the same organization,
Nice.
with the Mets.
That's not easy to
84.
do.
It's not. He was also part of the "Let's Go Mets Go" song and video from 1986. So we're going to talk about his music career as well. Originally drafted by the Phillies in 1983, our guest is Ed Hearn. Ed, welcome to the show, and thanks for being here, my friend.
Hi, you guys. How are you doing?
That was awesome.
I'm so happy you like my voice.
It's
I'll tell you
Willie.
what,
It's Willie Whistle.
Willie Whistle, you're aging yourself.
Please, let me tell you.
Come on, man. I just built up the voice, man. Give me that drawl now, will you?
And you really didn't want to have me, didn't want to build me up because you're afraid I would disappoint? My God.
Well, I just like to keep things on an even keel, Ed. You know what I mean?
Well, I understand it coming from Boston fans, though, actually.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we like to manage expectations here. You know what I mean? So,
I know. Well, you know, I can't bust on you guys because the Mets fans have been struggling really bad since, actually that thing you were talking about, the amount of the rings that I won after coming to the Mets. That was, I guess it's a real thing, and they've been telling me that for years, and that I'm the first player to have won in consecutive years.
yeah.
Championship ring at Single A Lynchburg, Double A Tidewater, Triple A Norfolk, Virginia, and World Series in '86. You know, a championship at each level of professional baseball.
You should have retired then.
Same organization. But that brings me to this: Mets fans have been really struggling with their expectations. The last since then because they traded me away
That's
the
right.
next year, and
That's
they haven't won yet.
Yeah. So
So,
it's we had the curse of the Bambino, and they have the curse of Hearn. They have the curse of Hearn right now, man.
I like it.
They do, yes. And one writer brought that to their attention. Oh, in about, I forget what year that was, 2000, 2010, I don't know. And I saw that and went, oh my God, that's so funny.
Hey, Ed,
I'm right up there with Babe Ruth.
you were obviously I wasn't managing expectations when I said the Mets of 1986. Now, man, mind you, I'm a Red Sox fan, and we have won a few
Right.
since then, but I'm still scarred, very much scarred by 1986. But I have to say, with a little bit of time now and distance, it was one of the more interesting and really, for one season anyway, I think one of the best teams of all time. I mean, you came up after the season started. You were called up and you backed up Gary Carter. So what was it like for you as a young player joining that clubhouse with Carter and Hernandez, Mookie Wilson, those pitchers, Gooden and Darling? What was it like for you to be in that atmosphere in your first year of Major League Baseball?
It was absolutely awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could not have asked for anything bigger or better than that as a rookie. I was 26 years old. I had spent 8.5 years in the minor leagues. I had been through injuries. I was a fourth-round pick originally by the Phillies, and had exhausted my time there with their organization, and was picked up by the Mets. And all I wanted to do was have a chance to catch. I blew my ankle out severely in 1979. That's only a year after I was drafted. I missed a whole season and a half because of that and shoulder injury. And they wrote me off really as a catcher, but
Yeah.
they kept me around as an organizational guy because I could hit. And finally the Mets. All I wanted was a chance, or I was going to move on. I had appointment to West Point, had Ivy League schools, had a whole great variety of things I felt like I could do other than be a ball player hanging around because I could hit.
Yeah, yeah. Ed, I want to ask you because, a lot of people looked at the Mets. They were kind of building at that point. They had been getting all this good young talent. They picked up a couple guys in trade like a Hernandez. Were you in spring training with the team?
Oh, yeah. I was
Did they know? Was there a feeling that 86 was going to be the year, or did they surprise themselves at how good they were?
No, Davey Johnson at one point in spring training, there was a lot of talk about, how we had a great season in '85, and he basically said, "This is our year, man. We're gonna take this thing."
Yeah.
And from that day on, we had this attitude is like, once we got rolling into the season, we jumped off to a great start, and we won, I think, our division by 23 games that year.
Yeah, right.
And it was just, we were a cocky bunch. Honest to God, cocky, and that made some people mad. We were in a few baseball fights, both on and off the field. Houston, arrested in a bar, 4 of our guys that year. It was just a crazy cast of characters, but like you said, extremely talented.
Yeah, and it seemed like it was that kind of group, and oftentimes you see them, whether they're spitting the tobacco, Wally Backman, struck me as one of those guys who's just a tough kid. Dykstra was a tough kid, but sometimes that's just the surface. But this team really was a group of kind of devil-may-care, go right at your players, weren't they?
Absolutely. That doesn't even really do it justice.
Yeah.
We would fly, and I remember one flight. I think we were going into Houston in the playoffs, and we're about to hit the runway, and the plane's dark. Guys are still drinking. They were already drunk, half passed out, and Keith Hernandez in this voice goes, "We're here. We're back. We're gonna kick your ass, bang your women, and something else they were talking about." It got pretty nasty. And it just that was the cockiness of the Mets.
Yeah, and you guys at that time, because the Yankees hadn't won in a few years. They were kind of a few years removed from the Reggie Jackson and the late Thurman Munson years, Billy Martin and all that. You guys ruled New York. You guys were the kings of New York. Not just in baseball, I think, but across the board, those Mets teams, in the mid-1980s, probably because of that personnel. What was it like being in the city with that team at that time?
A big smile just broke onto my face. Here, hey, I'm not a country kid, but I'm from the southeast coast of Florida, a fishing guy, and that sort of thing. And here I am looking in New York City, and you're right. I didn't know any different. I knew the great Yankee teams, et cetera, but I wasn't there when the Yankees were the dominant team.
Yeah.
That year, because we'd had good years the last 2 years, and like you said, we were building up, and it was just a beautiful thing, and it culminated with the World Series, this fabulous ticker tape parade. It was blown out. It was the biggest ticker tape parade in the history of New York City.
Yeah.
It was a big one.
Ed, before we get into that playoff series with Houston was unbelievable, and then, of course, the World Series with the Red Sox, I want to get into a couple of your teammates. You mentioned Keith Hernandez. Talk about him a little bit. I know that there are a lot of people like Keith Hernandez, some people that don't like Keith Hernandez, but was he a leader on the team? We know he had character. We know he had personality. Was he a team leader? Or talk about Keith a little bit and what he brought to that club.
Yeah, absolutely. He and Gary Carter were basically the real leaders of the team.
Yeah.
Totally different styles. Gary was a pom-pom, rah-rah. Sometimes got under people's, irritated people with they called him camera kid and this sort of thing. But
yeah.
The Hernandez people who don't like Hernandez never played with him.
There you go.
He was on the field. He was the ultimate, not a rah-rah leader. He was the opposite of Carter. But on the field, he was constantly talking to people, positioning, the game, on the bench, talking about game situation, hitting, here and there, in between dragging on cigarettes and stuff, back in the tunnel. But the Mex was a studious guy. He was a great leader, but he wasn't he wasn't the pom-pom kind of leader.
Right.
You know, the holler screaming kind of guy.
Yeah.
But he was absolutely a solid guy. And for those who you say may not have liked him, well, all I can tell you is they didn't play with the guy.
We're talking with Ed Hearn, who was a member of the 1986 World Champion Mets teams, also played for the Kansas City Royals in his big league career. And we're talking about some of the characters on that 86 Mets team. I assume you had a chance to catch Dwight Gooden at some point during that season, Ed? Can you talk about this kid and what he, I know, and obviously things, went kind of up and down for Dwight, as his career moved on. But talk about him then and what a phenom he was on the mound.
I can tell you even better than that. Everybody, so many people know about what Doc was in 85 in particular, still in 86, a solid year, but things have started to shift a little. But I got the chance to catch this kid when he was 17, 18 years old.
I was going to say, that's right. Yeah, right.
Lynchburg, Virginia.
Yeah.
And that kid, he struck out over 300 hitters that year in a minor league shortened season.
17 years old. Wow.
He was destined. I mean, it was amazing. The wind up and the delivery was effortlessly, and his long, lanky arms just pow. That ball just sailed out of his hand, and then he dropped that big old nasty curveball, and that big old smile with that gold tooth in there. I don't know if he still got it, but the kid was great. You mentioned he had some rocky times, and he did.
Yep.
He ended up he still struggles to this day with addiction. It's a daily thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
For him. But Dwight is the kind of guy, I use Dwight as an example to people. He's like the good guy that loses it to addiction or drinking or whatever. He was 17 years old from Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
And this guy was just flooded with all this attention and talent. And then he comes back to Tampa in the off season. And Dwight was a good guy. I mean, Dwight was a really nice guy. He still is. But the guys are back in the hood, like, hey, Doc, man, come on, let's have a little party, And
Yeah.
Doc, I'm sure Doc reacted right initially and saying, oh, man, hey, that's cool. I can't be hanging like that. Oh, man, what, you too good for us now or what?
Yeah, it's tough.
And
know,
you know
man.
what? That's how good people get sucked in and stuff like that. That's what happened to Doc.
Yeah.
And, of course, even during the season, let's face it, we didn't have a bunch of angels even hanging around in New
I was
York.
going to say, right, yeah.
So,
As a guy who had a similar, sort of rest of his career, but still put up great numbers and seemed like, the natural ability of both these guys always came out with Strawberry. What was it like playing with him?
biggest jerk in the game I ever played with.
See, there you go. All right. Yeah.
Extremely talented.
Yeah.
And you know what? The guy's a preacher today.
I know.
And
I know.
I really question that because he was a nasty dude.
Really?
When I played with him, I mean, he would hammer on Davy Johnson about his scar face from the fire that he was in. I mean, he'd holler, he'd be screaming at Wally back, and I'm just visualizing some things that happened on the bus between, say, a stadium and the airport or vice versa. And he'd be getting a little drink in him and some maybe other things. But, Wally had like a pitted back from terrible acne as a kid.
Yeah.
And he'd get on me, man, what's up, you little shit, man, you somebody spiked your butt, your back all these days, man. What just nasty? I mean,
Oh,
shit,
man.
really. And it was tough to back him down because he was such a stud, athletically and physically. It was kind of hard, he got a few fisticuffs with some of the leadership. I mean, Ray Knight didn't back down to him, but that's the story of two different coins there between Doc and Straw. But thank God today, he's a great example today that we can change.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Right.
point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ed, I have a question about. We hear a lot in the baseball movies that people that never played watch, and we kind of are in awe about. What was the first day, your first call up, your first game that you got in? What was that like?
It was Los Angeles, game of the week, Saturday.
Nice.
Joe Garagiola, Vin Scully.
Wow.
Bob Welch was on the hill, and
Man.
I took Bob's right field for my first at bat single. Second at bat, I hit a ground rule double off the
No way.
left field wall. And I have I've been speaking all over the country for years, and I have a video introduction, and that second at bat is described by He's a Scully of Garagiola, and it was amazing. He was saying, "Hey, this guy, young man, Ed Hearn, he's 6'3", 215 pounds. He had appointments at West Point Military Academy. He's a heck of a ball player.
Oh,
He
my
made one
Lord.
hell of a look. He would make one heck of a general. And man, pow, right in key. And I'm standing on second base, leading the league in hitting.
So you had your
And
first game. Your first game, you had two Hall of Fame announcers calling your first major league hits.
No kidding.
Oh, those guys were fantastic.
Oh,
And, you know,
man.
they were talking about my defensive prowess. And they're saying, this guy can hit, too. You know, it's pretty fun. But intimidation, you know, I mean, anybody that tells you they didn't play their first major league ball game and have nerves, man.
Yeah.
That game must have taken 10 hours, it seemed like. I was just worn out.
You know, I always felt, we'll talk with Ed Hearn, who was a member of the 1986 world champion New York Mets team. I've always felt like, because it was kind of such a quick hit for the Mets with that group, and they only got the one World Series, which I'm not putting down one World Series. Most teams don't even get that. But I always felt Davey Johnson was underrated as a manager, to take all those personalities together. You know, that team could win a lot of different ways. Talk about Davey a bit, Ed.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean, because you're saying he's underrated, but yet we had all that talent.
Yeah, okay.
And you know, he came in there as Frank was building that team. Frank Cashin,
yeah.
Joe McIlvain was a guy you never hear about, but he's the brain behind most of that.
Sure.
We had all these number one picks. Davey comes in there, you know, and starts managing those guys. You know, he's starting single A or double A and then triple A, and he's right on up with this crew. And you know, honestly, you know what? We didn't win like we should have. But you know, I don't mean to be hard on Davey, and I'm not being hard.
I get it.
But I don't think he was the reason we won, and I don't think he's the reason maybe that they didn't win after that.
Right.
Because that's a tough job to do when you got that much talent and you got those kind of characters. And after we won the cake, man, you know, character. I talk a lot about character, and we had a lot of characters.
Yep.
But, you know, sometimes we weren't the best of character.
I get you. Ed, we're going to take a break here, but you're going to stay with us. We're going to talk more about Ed Hearn. We'll get into the 86 World Series. Then we're also going to talk about Ed's own personal battles, how he overcame them, and how he's helping others now. Be right back on Great American Collectibles Show. And we are back here on the Great American Collectibles Show, doing something a little bit different today. John Mallory along with Dave Martinez, and we're talking with Ed Hearn, who was a member of the 1986 World Champion Mets team. In our second segment, we're going to have Jim Lonborg, 1967 Cy Young Award winner for the Boston Red Sox. But first, how about a little eBay? And Dave, I want to talk to you about our good friends at eBay. If you're looking for autographed memorabilia, hard-to-find collectibles, or that extremely rare Dave Martinez 1973 original photo with the lamb chop sideburns and mint green leisure suit, jump on eBay. You can find just about anything on eBay. If you're on a budget, you can purchase PSA-graded cards at very affordable prices, great pieces of memorabilia from your favorite dealers and players, autographs, and much more. I buy all kinds of stuff on eBay. I recently bought a towel that belonged to Tom Zappala when he ran track in high school. Of course, it was completely dry because you don't sweat when you're on the bench. I also bought a Cam Newton rookie card, but like all of Cam's passes, it was intercepted during shipment.
Ouch. For everything from graded to ungraded T2X6 cards, Goudies, Play Ball, and Topps 52, there are some amazing deals on eBay. And don't forget non-sports cards like Daniel Boone, Partridge Family, Baywatch, Banana Splits, Beatles,
right?
All kinds of sports collectibles, and even tickets to your favorite game.
That's right, Dave. eBay has 162 million users and is the biggest and best marketplace in the world. Go to ebay.com and either make your purchase or get your bid in, my friend.
All right.
And we are back now with Ed Hearn, who played 1986, 87, 88 in the majors for the Mets and the Royals. He was a backup catcher on the 1986 World Championship Mets team. And I want to talk a little bit about that playoff run now, Ed, because obviously I think you gave us some great insight on that team in our first segment, the personality, the confidence, maybe even the arrogance and the cockiness. Was there ever a time you had that great series with Houston, that both of those game sixes the NLCS and the World Series, maybe the two best Game 6s ever, other than maybe 1975 with Carlton Fisk. But with that confidence, with that cockiness, were you guys ever worried? Were you ever worried to the point where it was like, man, this thing is done? You know, we're not going to accomplish what we set out to do.
Well, that game in Houston that went 16 innings.
Yeah.
We were up against the wall, and I got to be honest with you, there was a guy that team that we were going to face, a pitcher named Mike Scott.
Oh man!
If we didn't win that ball game, we would face Scott, and he had already beat us twice, and he would have beat us the third time because he was so deep in our skulls because of what he was doing, and he was cheating. There's just, I mean, I was the guy that finally found the evidence later in the next game, but you know, it's just. Mike Scott was cheating, and we were really struggling bad, and we had to win that game.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you talk about that playoff those years. Don't forget, the Red Sox almost lost to the Angels that year.
Of course, that was I
mean, it was a fabulous year of postseason.
Oh my!
I mean, I would challenge you. Tell me a better 4 games, 14 setup going into that postseason.
Ed, I agree.
Games than those. I mean, Donnie Moore, God bless his wonderful soul.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, he ended his life because he gave up the home run to Hernandez that put the Red Sox in.
Yeah.
It was tremendous. It was tough pressure, but in that rare moment there in that 16-inning game, we knew we could not lose.
Yeah.
And people talk about that flight home and how we destroyed the plane. It wasn't the players. The players were too exhausted. It was the wives that were allowed on the plane that
Now, when you say destroy the plane, what what happened?
Come on, guys! You got to read up on your background here.
I got you. I want to get it from you. I've read up on. I want to get it from the horse's mouth here, brother.
Okay, man. Here it comes then. So
keep it clean now, Ed.
We're back in New York, and our general manager Frank Cashin was really upset about the damage that was done to the plane. He sat down a $7,500 bill from the airlines, and to Davey called a team meeting, came before us and said, "All right, you animals." Frank's not happy. And he said, "But he thinks you're going to pay for this? That's crap. You guys deserve this." He took that thing and ripped it in half. And he said, "Push comes to shove, I'll pay for that damn $7,500."
You know, man,
you guys.
Ed, I got to tell you, you're doing something to me I never thought could be done. I'm starting to like the '86 Mets. I didn't think that was ever possible, but I'm starting to like this team, brother. You know,
it was a crazy bunch of guys. But then again, remember, it was a one-shot deal.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, when I got traded the next spring to Kansas City, had a starting job out here to handle a beautiful pitching staff.
Yeah.
That had just won the '85 World Series. Young group, and Sundberg was on his way out. Blah blah blah. I had a starting job in my second year at the big leagues, handling, if not the best, the second best pitching staff in all of baseball at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, dang man, I mean, I could be leaving New York here, these Mets guys. And I could be missing out on 2 or 3 rings in the next 5 years.
I know.
That's right.
That's the way it seemed. Let's get into that series. Obviously, you guys went down 2-0, came back. That brought us to Game 6. And just one of the epic games of all time. I just want to get kind of your reflections on it, being there, watching it, so many moments. And I want to know if you cheered loudly when Bob Stanley came in the game. As a Met, because I know as Boston fans we were doing just the opposite. And then God bless his soul too, Bill Buckner, who took the brunt of the criticism, which I thought was always unfair. Just give me your reflections on that game as someone who was there.
You talk about the fans cheering and stuff, and I wasn't playing in that game. I was on the bench, and I'm looking back toward home plate, sitting on the top row of bench, and I'm looking toward home plate, and behind home plate. On the right side were the Boston fans, left side was the Mets fans, family. And you're right, the Boston family was just going nuts. They were partying in the stands. And by the end of that inning, I saw the change was unbelievable.
Oh, my Lord.
I mean, they went to death. It
Yeah.
was like they were at a morgue. To our fans, just going crazy. What a beautiful thing there. Recently, somebody asked me a question. Somebody asked me a question on one of these shows, and I'd never been asked. And it brought up, what does it feel like during all that? And you know what? And they said from a fan standpoint, I went, oh my God. I know how it felt for me, but I cannot really grasp what it felt like as a fan. I mean, I've heard from both sides, mostly Mets fans, but what drama, all the years with no championships,
Yeah.
both teams.
Yeah.
And so I really don't know the extent of how I've heard where people were. It was like when JFK got shot, you know where you're at, what
Yeah.
happened, et cetera. It was unbelievable.
It's amazing to
that
think that the Red Sox were, one strike away from ending the curse. Three
Yes.
times,
Uh,
3 different times they were
yeah.
1 strike away, and you guys just kept coming and coming. It was just, you gotta hand it to your team. You guys were clutch, man.
Well, I got so many stories. You guys don't have time for this, but Calvin Schiraldi, who gave it up
Yeah.
for you guys, was playing with us.
That's
He
right.
was a roommate.
That's right.
Out there.
Yes.
We were in each other's wedding.
No way.
And I kind of dated his sister on a little long distance thing, and it's too long to tell, but I'm telling you guys, from the Boston flight to New York, yeah, she was on our charter flight,
No way.
unplanned, unplanned,
Oh,
yes,
man.
unplanned. And in game 6 and 7, she's sitting next to my dad, and on the other end of my 12 tickets is a young lady who I just met, a nurse on Long Island, who has been my caretaker for 33 years, my wife, Tricia.
No
And
kidding.
I didn't know it at the time. I just met her. I gave her tickets. Rhonda wasn't supposed to be coming to New York, but, they were up 3-2, and she started, oh, I'm going to go. I said, talk to your brother, man. I can't help you. And her brother said, I can't help you at all. So I said, well, I can. Oh, darn it. So I said, she's on my plane. She's on my ticket. She's sitting 12 seats away from my future wife. My dad says, if you ever do that again, I will kill you.
We're talking with Ed. We're talking with Ed Hearn, who was a member of the 1986 World Champion Mets. Interesting. This is great, Ed. So you actually, through that World Series, you got a ring, and then you had to give a ring.
Yeah, there you go.
That's pretty neat. You know what, man? That's pretty cool. Hey, Ed, I want to get to, obviously the Mets won that World Championship in 7. Heartbreak for Red Sox fans. Eventually settled in 2004. But I want to get to, in the time we have left, a little bit about your post-baseball. You battled kidney problems. You had to get a kidney transplant. You had skin cancer. I want to talk about where you were, how you got out of it, and also what you're doing now, where that kind of brought you in your life.
You guys we don't have much time here, but let me sum it up.
That's okay. Take your time, Ed. Take your time.
I'm traded to Kansas City next spring with 5 days left.
Yeah.
3 weeks later, I blow my shoulder out.
Yeah.
Major reconstructive surgery. I battle to come back. 2.5 years later, I'm out of the game. Less than a year later, I'm on dialysis and having the first of 3 kidney transplants.
Unbelievable.
I was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure, a condition called hypogammaglobulinemia, which I have been taking an IV treatment, about $10,000 a shot, once a month since 1992. Central nerve sleep apnea. I've had about 50 squamous cell carcinomas surgically removed off my body.
Wow.
I just a myriad of health issues.
Yeah.
But I told you, I married that wonderful lady from South Shore of Long Island. She's a nurse. She's kept me alive. And a year and a half after my first transplant, side effects of medication can cause lots of different things to lots of different people. I came down with mood swings and depression.
Oh,
And
man.
a year and a half after that first transplant, I went to my basement with Lotus 357, and I contemplated quitting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I made the right choice, and I was a guy that I was not a quitter.
Yep.
And I made a plan, and I'd love to tell you about it, but it's just. But what happened? 6 months later, I began to have the opportunity to share my story.
Yep.
And I wrote a book called Conquering Life's Curse: Baseball Battles and Beyond. We were on the Oprah Winfrey Show with it. It just did phenomenal for an old P-Dunk backup catcher, broke down fella. But not only the book, but I have had the opportunity to speak for 25 years, 25 now, around the country. I got up to doing 90 to 100 a year.
Yeah.
And by God, I can tell you right now, that is the pinnacle of my life.
Yeah.
I went from the penthouse to the outhouse and back. And it's the back part that is so, so valuable to me. And, people will say, man, you take 30, 40 pills a day. And I say, yep, but you know what the best pill is for me? When I can be in front of an audience, or even one-on-one, or through my book, and I can make a difference in the lives of other people.
Yep.
Through my experiences, through my perspective. Man, it just does not get any better than that.
Well, I got to tell you, Ed, it doesn't get any better than this on this show. I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk to you today. Again, the name of the book is Conquering Life's Curves. It's by Ed Hearn, who was a member of the 1986 World Champion Mets team, accomplished a lot of things in his baseball career, and he's accomplishing even more now as a motivational speaker and someone who's inspiring others to face their problems and do it with a positive attitude and move forward. Ed, thank you so much for being on the show, man. I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it, and we'd love to talk to you again sometime.
Absolutely, guys. I love talking to the Red Sox folks. It's therapeutic for you guys. Right?
Yes, it is.
It is.
Thank you so much.
I feel better. You've motivated me, Ed. So.
Very good.
Ed, thank you very much
swinging, man.
Thank you very much for being with
Keep
us.
swinging, buddy. Thank you.
Absolutely. Keep swinging, fellas.
You got it.
All right, we're going to take a short break now, Dave, if that works for you, and we're going to
does.
come back with 1967 Cy Young Award winner Jim Lonborg here on the Great American Collectibles Show.